Luke Rockhold was born on October 17, 1984 in Santa Cruz, California. He had the advantage of being born in an athletic family. His brother, Matt, is a professional surfer. His father played basketball in Europe while his mom played tennis. Luke was also athletic at a young age by training in judo at just 6 years old. After 4 years, Luke quit judo, later joining his school wrestling team in 7th grade. He later joined his high school's wrestling team while taking BJJ outside of school. After high school, Luke decided to go into jiu-jitsu full-time and won a few tournaments. He decided to enter into MMA before being invited to the American Kickboxing Academy in San Jose, California. He made his professional debut at middleweight at Melee on the Mountain. He won his first fight by armbar. His second fight would be his first loss, coming by way of TKO. Despite this, a young MMA promotion named Strikeforce offered Luke to be part of their second Young Gun card. Luke fought against Josh Neal at the main event. This fight would be a big boost for Luke as he made Neal submit to punching. Luke would then go on a 4-fight submission winning streak, where he'd submit all 4 of his opponents by way of round 1 rear naked choke, and his last win was a first round TKO against Paul Bradley. This 6-fight win streak earned Luke a title shot against middleweight champion Ronaldo Souza dos Santos, or commonly known as Jacare Souza. He faced off against the champ at Strikeforce, Barnett vs. Kharitonov. The fighters went 5 whole rounds, but Luke was the one with his hand raised by unanimous decision. Another popularity boost for Luke was that before his fight, EA Sports announced that he would be a playable character in their MMA game. Luke would defend his title against Keith Jardine at his first Strikeforce main event since his debut into the promotion. So something to note about Strikeforce is that they didn't number their events like the UFC does. Instead, they just named it after the headliners of the card. Now back to Luke, who defended his bout by a first-round TKO. His second defense would be against Army and Iraq War veteran Tim Kennedy. As of August 2025, Tim is currently under investigation from the National Guard Green Beret for lying about his military service record. Luke would beat Tim by unanimous decision, winning 4 out of the 5 rounds. This defense earned Luke the record for most consecutive middleweight title defenses in the promotion's history. Luke was put on the Cormier vs. Mir card to defend his belt against undefeated Lorenz Larkin. But the fight wouldn't come through as headliner Mir pulled out against Cormier due to a shoulder injury, canceling the event. Despite talks of a rescheduling, Luke Rockhold had a lingering shoulder injury, so those talks were called off. Luke wouldn't defend his Strikeforce belt again. In January 2013, Strikeforce's parent company, Zuffa, shut the promotion down. A list of fighters from Strikeforce were being sent to the UFC as a result of the shutdown. Thankfully, Luke Rockhold was on that list. Luke made his UFC debut as the headliner for UFC on FX8, fighting former light heavyweight champion Vitor Belfort. The fight would end in the first round, but not in Luke's favor. During the fight, Vitor would knock out Luke with a spinning heel kick and end it with a flurry of punches. While this wasn't the best way to make his debut into the promotion, Luke wouldn't be demotivated. He started 2014 by fighting Costas Filippo at Fight Night 35. Winning by first round TKO, he earned knockout of the night alongside that. He made his pay-per-view debut on the main card of UFC 172 against Tim Bosch. He won by submission by using an inverted triangle Kimura. His final fight of the year was at Fight Night 55, fighting against former Cage Warrior and Cage Rage light heavyweight champion Michael Bisping. During the fight, Luke knocked Bisping out, submitting him by a guillotine choke. He earned a performance of the night for this bout. This fight was also Luke's first ever second round finish. His next fight was another headliner at Fox 15 against another former UFC light heavyweight champion, Lyoto Machida. In a great performance, Luke was able to submit the former champion in the second round. With this 4-fight win streak, the UFC gave Luke his title shot against the undefeated champion Chris Weidman. The two would be the co-main event at UFC 194. During the third round, Chris attempted to hit Luke with a spinning kick. He missed the kick, and Luke was able to get a hold of him and take him down. Prior to this, Chris had never been taken down before in the UFC. Luke would get the top mount position and throw punches and elbows, enough to cause Chris to bleed. Though Luke was nearly close to ending the fight right then and there, Chris somehow made it to the end. In round 4, Luke hit Chris with another successful takedown, spending a majority of the fight on top. This came to an end when Luke landed multiple unanswered shots on Chris, and the referee called the fight by way of TKO. With the title across his waist, Luke felt untouchable. To prove this, the UFC would have him defend his belt in a rematch against Chris. but Chris pulled out due to a disc herniation. Luke would instead have a rematch against Michael Bisping. Bisping was on a 3-fight win streak and was coming off of a win against former middleweight champion and MMA veteran Anderson Silva. This was a big fight for Bisping, since he took the fight on a 10-day notice. The Second Revolutionary War would take place at UFC 199 in June 2016. In round 1, Bisping would hit Luke with a right body hook before striking him with a left hook. This stunned Luke before being struck by another left hook. After a few more hits, the ref would stop the fight. Luke was supposed to have his return fight in November at Fight Night 101 against Jacare Souza in a rematch. This fight was cancelled because Luke suffered an undisclosed injury. It wouldn't be until over a year later when Luke came back to the sport. He'd face former WSOF middleweight and light heavyweight champion David Branch, who was on a 11-fight win streak. The former champions faced off at Fight Night 116. In the second round, Luke would overwhelm Branch with strikes, forcing Branch to submit to the punches. After ending the win streak of an experienced fighter, Luke was given his second title shot at UFC 221 against champion Robert Whittaker. This fight fell through since Robert suffered from a staph infection. Instead, Luke would fight for the interim title against Yoel Romero. Only Luke was eligible to win the title, since Yoel missed weight by 2.7 pounds. Yoel was very tricky in this fight, using a different style each round. By the third, Yoel would catch Luke with a hook to the jaw, using some more strikes to knock out the former champ. After 2 more fights fell through, Luke was away from the cage for over a year, until finally making his light heavyweight debut at UFC 239. He faced former KSW light heavyweight champion Jan Blachowicz. In just 1.5 minutes, Luke would attempt 5 takedowns, all of which would be defended by Jan. The fight would end quickly by first round knockout by Jan. After this fight, Luke would take 2 years off from the sport. He was scheduled to come back at UFC 268, fighting against Sean Strickland, but due to a herniated disc, Luke was forced to pull out. He would then be scheduled to fight against former title challenger Paulo Costa at UFC 277. The fight was then postponed to UFC 278. After 3 years, Luke was finally going to make his return to the UFC. Both fighters were on a 2-fight losing streak, so this fight would mean a lot for them to win. But unlike other fights where 2 strikers just poke at each other, Luke and Paulo would swing like no tomorrow, even with the high altitudes of Salt Lake City. The two would win fight of the night, but Paulo would be the one to have his hand raised. In his Octagon interview, Luke would announce that he was officially retiring from mixed martial arts. While he does pursue a career in boxing, Luke's MMA career would come to an end. If you enjoyed watching this video and want to see more like this, consider liking and subscribing.